Good morning and welcome to the webinar on First Steps, How to Get Started Hiring People with Disabilities. I'm Sean Lyons, Executive Director of the South Dakota Retailers Association. First, some information about our association. The South Dakota Retailers Association is a 3,900-member statewide association. Our primary mission is to represent retailers in the legislative and regulatory process. In addition, we provide information, offer training for food service and alcohol licensees, and provide member services. Those include credit card processing, business insurance, and data security. We also have an agreement with a labor law firm that allows our members to get answers to employment law questions from an attorney. This year, our organization was one of 3 business associations that were selected to participate in a national pilot project aimed at increasing workplace inclusion of people with disabilities. Through this project called Getting Down to Business, we are partnering with the South Dakota Department of Human Services, the South Dakota Department of Labor and Regulation, and the U.S. Office of Disability Employment Policy to provide information to employers. This webinar is part of that initiative. Today's webinar will feature 2 speakers, Marcia Hultman and Kimberly Hoberg. Marcia Hultman is the Secretary of the South Dakota Department of Labor and Regulation. She has been part of the DLR team since June of 1997, first serving as a Public Information Officer, then Workforce Services Director in 2000, and a joint role as a Director and Deputy Secretary starting in 2006. Secretary Hultman chairs the Unemployment Insurance Advisory Council and serves on the Workers' Compensation Advisory Council, Workforce Development Council, and the Department of Labor Retirement Board. She is a graduate of Black Hills State University. Kimberly Hoberg is a business specialist with the South Dakota Division of Rehabilitation Services. She has a Master of Science degree in Rehabilitation Counseling and is a certified rehabilitation counselor. Kimberly is a primary contact for South Dakota employers and businesses providing technical support in hiring of people in the areas of hiring people with disabilities, reasonable accommodations, business tax incentives, Section 503 regulations, and other areas of disability-related topics. A few things before we start the presentation. This webinar is being closed captioned. Following the webinar, a transcript will also be available. The phones of all attendees are muted, so we won't be hearing background noises. We will also have a question and answer period at the conclusion of the presentation. If you would like to ask a question at any time, just go to the panel on the side of your screen. You may need to click on the orange arrow to maximize the panel. Type your message in the chat box, then click on Send. At the conclusion of the presentation, I'll read the questions out loud, and Kim and Secretary Hultman will provide the answers to your questions. We'll now turn the presentation over to Kim Hoberg. Kim, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Sean, and good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to have the opportunity to present today along with Marcia Hultman from the Department of Labor Secretary, or from the Department of Labor. As you can see, the title slide, today's presentation is in regards to the first steps, how to get started when employing people with disabilities. Now, the next slide is in regards to providing an overview of what a disability is. A disability can be defined as people who have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or major life activity. Now, this definition is based on the Americans with Disabilities Act. It also includes individuals who have a record of such an impairment, even if they do not currently have a disability. It also includes individuals who do not have a disability but are regarded as having a disability. Now, examples of major life activities include breathing, walking, talking, hearing, seeing, sleeping, caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, and working. Major life activities also include major bodily functions such as the immune system, normal cell growth, digestive, the bowel, bladder, neurological, brain, respiratory, circulatory, endocrine, and reproductive functions. Now, to add on to this, a disability can also occur either at birth or be acquired later on in life. Approximately 12% of non-institutionalized U.S. population, or 36 million people, report a disability, making people with disabilities one of the most prevalent minority groups in the country and the only one that anyone can join during any point of their life, regardless of race, class, gender, religion, or education level. Now, the next slide contains, some examples of disabilities, and that consists of hearing, which contains hearing loss or deafness, vision, which includes the diagnosis of blindness, significant vision loss, orthopedic, impairments with the back, spinal cord, arthritis. Neurological contains epilepsy, brain injury, cognitive learning disabilities, and diagnoses that are part of the cardiac circulatory system, heart disease, leukemia, etc. With respiratory, diagnoses that fall in this category consist of asthma, emphysema, bronchitis. The metabolic system, diabetes, Crohn's disease, and psychological, emotional, attention deficit disorder, or ADD, anxiety and depression. Now, please keep in mind that this list is not just limited to these diagnoses. It also includes other diagnoses or disabilities. Now, kind of the first steps for businesses that are interested in wanting further information or to take the steps of employing people with disabilities. One of the agencies that can reach out to is called the South Dakota Vocational Rehabilitation. Now, Vocational Rehabilitation Services is a state, federal program that provides individualized employment-related support to eligible individuals with disabilities to prepare for, regain, maintain, and/or advance in the workforce. Now, South Dakota has 2 VR agencies in the state. The first one is called Division of Rehabilitation Services, and the mission of Division of Rehabilitation Services is to assist individuals with disabilities to obtain or maintain employment, economic self-sufficiency, personal independence, and full inclusion into society. And the second VR agency that's available in our state is called the Service to the Blind and Visually Impaired. And the mission statement of Service to the Blind and Visually Impaired is to provide individualized rehabilitation services that result in optimal employment and independent living outcomes for citizens who are blind or visually impaired. Now, moving on to the next slide. Traditionally, VR agencies focus almost exclusively on serving the client with disabilities. VR counselors would assess the individual's needs, offer training, and help the person find a job. Lately, however, there has been a greater focus on including the needs of the business community in the VR focus. In recent years, several states have recognized the value of seeing the employer as a customer as much as a person with a disability. And this is called the dual customer approach. Really, this is about trying to identify all the needs that employers have and being able to set up systems and services that respond to them. Moving on to the next slide, employer support services. What are employer support services? Employer support are the consultation and services provided by VR in response to businesses' needs to recruit, hire, train, advance, or retain employees with disabilities. Some examples of employer support services that VR might address include finding qualified candidates with disabilities, assisting with questions related to the U.S. Department of Labor, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Section 503 regulations, providing disability etiquette training and training on the ADA for hiring managers, solving issues related to the accessibility of technology, touring a business to gain an understanding of culture, perform job analysis, etc., offering assistance and resources in obtaining an American Sign Language interpreter for a job interview, delivering on-the-job assistance to a manager who has concerns about socially awkward behavior that a new employee is exhibiting, providing assistance to human resources when a long-term employee's job performance begins to deteriorate, or assisting a hiring manager with providing accommodations to help with short-term memory loss for a new employee with a traumatic brain injury. Now, the list of employer supports is not just limited to this, and additional support can be customized to businesses' needs or requests. Now, kind of maybe wondering the benefits or the business case for to businesses when hiring people with disabilities. Essentially, it's not about doing the right thing by employing people with disabilities, but about the bottom line of making businesses successful. Overall, there are 6 key benefits. The first one, return on investment, human capital, diversity, marketing, innovation, and social responsibility. Kind of give you a little breakdown of each of the benefits. And the return on investment, hiring and retaining workers with disability decreases recruiting and turnover costs while enhancing morale and revenue. Workers with disabilities improve productivity through innovation, creativity, and tools or accommodations in which benefit all employees. Employing diverse workers opens access to new markets and business opportunities, and inclusive work environments increase retention and reduce hiring and training costs. The second benefit, human capital. Representing 20% of the U.S. population, people with disabilities embody a diverse labor pool. For effective human capital strategies, it is highly encouraged for businesses to do the following: develop or implement management strategies to attract and retain qualified talent, access recruitment and resources that serve job seekers with disabilities, develop approaches to retain the skills and knowledge of employees who acquire disabilities, and leverage cost-effective tools, technology, and resources to increase productivity and performance. Third benefit, diversity. Creating a diverse workforce enhances competitiveness and contributes to positive images of businesses. By having effective diversity management, it allows for companies to survive and grow under complex and competitive conditions. And competitiveness is achieved through the diversity of thought, innovation, and creativity. The fourth benefit, marketing. The disability community represents $200 billion in annual buying power, in which is further augmented by their family members and customers. Businesses can expand of assessing this market by some of the following strategies: hire people with disabilities, ensure products and services are accessible and usable by a broad spectrum of disabilities, include people with disabilities in advertisements and other materials, and utilize current employees with disabilities to assist while responding to marketing materials. The fifth benefit, innovation. Employees with disabilities can also bring unique experiences and understanding that transform a workplace, enhance products and/or services, and increase overall productivity. Bring innovation and stimulate new product development through disability, inclusive, diverse teams. And the last benefit, social responsibility. Research has shown that companies demonstrating social responsibility are more competitive because they attract more potential employee and customers. This concept means that companies take more of a voluntary approach by integrating ethical and environmental concerns together with the measures of revenue, profit, and legal obligation. Now, moving on to the next slide. To provide an overview of the VRS process, the first step to the VR process is for individuals to complete an application for services, which will lead into an eligibility or ineligibility determination period. Now, to be eligible for VR services, individuals with disabilities must meet the following criteria, or one of the following criteria. Be an individual with a disability, with a diagnosis or diagnoses resulting in a substantial impediment to employment, be able to benefit from achieving an employment outcome, or require services to prepare for, enter, engage in, or retain gainful employment. Now, once the eligibility has been established or determined, VR counselors assist and support the individual to understand their capabilities and develop career goals. Counselors can then provide the link between people looking for work and employers. To do this, counselors must have an awareness of their client's potential and also know what skills are in demand within the job market. VR counselors also work with other agencies in the community to remove the environmental, employment, and attitudinal barriers. Now, on the overview of the VR process, the breakdown on the sheet there, the third one, providers. The providers are where individuals can choose or select to work with a provider or an employment specialist, in which consists of community support providers or private providers. And private providers are typically self-employed. Now, the providers provide individualized support to work towards employment goals and performance outcomes. Providers can assist with finding a job, training on the job, and job retention. And they can also offer support to individuals and employers at the employment site or off-site to monitor progress of employment. Also, providers are available and located throughout the state of South Dakota as well. Now, as far as once individuals have obtained and maintained employment for 3 months or 90 days since they first began working, their VR counselors, along with themselves, will evaluate the need for additional support for employment. And if they don't require additional support, their files will be closed as a result of being successfully employed in the workforce. Now, the slide that you're seeing now, if you're interested in contacting a local vocational rehabilitation office, there is a total of 11 offices located throughout the state. Now, for communities that don't have VR offices directly located in their location, there are VR staff that travel to respective territories. And on the last slide of my PowerPoint, there is a map that is available that identifies the offices, the 11 offices, their contact information, and then they're color-coded to the respective counties that they serve. With that, I will turn it over to Sean.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kim. I mentioned earlier that the South Dakota Retailers Association has been selected to participate in a national pilot project this year aimed at increasing workplace inclusion of people with disabilities. Kim asked SCRA to apply for that project and is on the work team for the initiative. Secretary Hultman, who you'll be hearing from next, serves on the advisory group that is overseeing the project and has been a key leader in the effort. They both have been a tremendous resource for our staff. We extend our sincere thanks to them. Now, we'll turn the presentation over to Secretary Hultman. Secretary, good morning.
Good morning, Sean, and to all of our listeners. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share a little bit about the services that the department has to offer. First of all, I'll be going through some of the services and assistance that we can give to employers as they begin to look at hiring an individual with a disability. I will be sharing some basic information on the hiring process, and just want to mention 2 grants that the Department of Labor and Regulation has had in recent years. We've had 2 Disability Employment Initiative grants from the federal government, and these grants, the first one focused on helping youth with disabilities enter into the workforce, and the one we have currently focuses on helping adults enter the workforce. And we have long been positioned as an agency to assist individuals that have barriers to employment to get that first job and then to move on up the career ladder. And these grants that we've had have really increased our focus on our partnership with the Department of Human Services and Vocational Rehabilitation and led to the natural partnership that you're seeing here today on this webinar. So with that, the first thing I want to share with you is the starting point for receiving services from the Department of Labor and Regulation. And if you don't take anything else away from today and my presentation, it will just be to recognize where our local offices are. This is important because we can help you one-on-one with the services, with the questions, with that entire hiring process from the start to the finish. And so you can see the offices that are indicated by a star, and those are what we call our comprehensive offices. They're fully staffed. They have a full slate of services. In addition to those, we have some affiliate offices, and these are offices that also have full-time staff but on a more limited basis. They're going to be knowledgeable on all the programs and services that we have to offer, but if it becomes something of a specialty, then we may have somebody from one of our other locations come in to help you. Obviously, there are a lot of small communities throughout the state. They're not represented on this map. And in many, many of our smaller communities across the state, we offer itinerant services. And that means that we go to those communities and set up shop maybe every other week or once a month, or depending on the needs in the community. So with that, just watch your local newspapers, look at our website, and you can find out when and where we'll be in your local communities. It is good to note, too, that in many of our locations, particularly those indicated with a star, that we are co-located with the Department of Human Services, so you can access both of us in one location. I want to focus first on some of the services that we have in helping an employer find the right fit for any job opening that you may have. And the first thing is job postings and job matchings, and I really want to stress that the Department of Labor and Regulation has a website that is the most comprehensive spot to list your jobs. And if you're not doing that currently, I really encourage you to do so. 1, it's going to give you the most access to job seekers. 2, it's at no charge. And 3, it's what state decision makers use for data. So when we try to verify how many types of openings in a certain industry there are, we look to this data. And if you're not listing with us, then you're not being represented in the data that's being used. So again, really encourage you to either go on to our website and list your jobs yourself, or work with a staff at one of our local offices, and they can help you to list that job. We can do assessments on job seekers. We can help determine their work readiness, their interest in different areas, and their educational attainment. And the other thing that we have are a lot of training dollars that can help support. So if you're working with an individual or interested in hiring somebody and we're not quite sure if their skills are there yet or if they're going to be a good fit for that job, we can do a tryout employment where labor is paying part of the wages. There's many different types of on-the-job trainings that we can do as well, and sometimes it's a partnership with the employer paying part of the wages and we pay part of the wages, or there are certain time periods where labor can pick up that full wage for a qualified individual. We can also help send somebody to post-secondary education and help them pay for their tuition and fees with training dollars that we have. And the last note on this particular slide is the facilitation of integrated resource teams, and sometimes we turn into bureaucrats and we use language that becomes a bit wordy, but what that means is if you should hire a person with a disability, then between the Department of Labor and Regulation and the Department of Human Services, we can have a whole team of individuals that can offer supportive services, job coaching, helps with accommodations. So you don't have to have it all figured out on your own. You don't have to have all the answers. We can sort some of that out. And it's a team approach throughout those beginning weeks or months of employment, and then with follow-up throughout the employment of that individual. So the employer, again, is never having to go it alone. Kim touched on this a little bit too, but I want you to just think about this for a minute. And the question is, why should you hire a person with a disability? And there are 3 different options on the slide, and which is the following is the best answer. Well, obviously, number 1 is not true. The American with Disabilities Act is a civil rights law that guarantees access for people with disabilities in all areas of life, including employment. However, the ADA does not require employers to hire candidates with disabilities simply because the person has an impairment. Rather, hiring decisions should always be based on individual qualifications for the job. The third one is close to being the right answer, but it's still not the best answer. While businesses can demonstrate their corporate social responsibility by hiring people with disabilities, there are many business reasons for employing qualified applicants with disabilities. The second answer is actually the best one. Studies show that people with disabilities make great employees. Businesses that employ people with disabilities turn social issues into business opportunities. These opportunities translate into lower costs, higher revenues, and increased profits. So hopefully when you're making the hiring decisions, you're deciding based on solid business foundation and the person's abilities to do the job. So with that, in the hiring process, when do accommodations actually start? Well, accommodations should start even before the interview. So here are some different areas where you should think about accessibility in your hiring process to make sure that you're not eliminating any qualified potential candidates. So when you post your jobs, it's really important to ensure that whatever job posting system that you're using, whatever job boards on the internet, have formats that are accessible. And that's one thing that is guaranteed if you post with the Department of Labor and Regulation. We meet those standards for accessibility on our job board. You need to indicate on job announcements that qualified individuals with disabilities are encouraged to apply and that reasonable accommodations will be provided. So don't ever assume that that message is being relayed. You want to include that language right in your job openings or announcements. Ensure online application systems, including online pre-employment tests, are accessible to candidates with disabilities. So again, just because it's on the internet or you have your application actually online doesn't mean that it's fully accessible. And we have resources that we can help determine if those standards are met. You want to confirm that the interview locations are physically accessible. Inform all applicants ahead of time what the interview process may include and provide them with the opportunity to request a reasonable accommodation if needed. And then be prepared to provide reasonable accommodations for the applicants. during the interviews, pre-employment tests, and other aspects of the hiring process. So the job's been posted. You're letting the word get out there that you need somebody, and the applications are rolling in. So what's next? Well, you may be wondering, what kind of questions can you ask? So again, here are some possible questions or approaches that you can take. It's interview time. You've provided the accommodations at the interview location if requested, and you're having that face-to-face with the individual. Number one is a definite no. You may not ask any pre-employment questions about a disability or its nature or severity. You cannot ask about medical history, medical treatment, hospitalization, mental health prescriptions, treatment for drug addiction or alcoholism, workers' comp prior to a conditional offer of employment. In general, the ADA does not allow an employer to ask any questions about a disability or to conduct any medical examinations until after the employer makes a conditional job offer to the applicant. Although employers may not ask disability-related questions or require medical examinations at the pre-offer stage, they may do a wide variety of things to evaluate whether an applicant is qualified for the job, including some of the following. Employers may ask about an applicant's ability to perform specific job functions or tasks. Employers may request that an applicant describe or demonstrate how they would perform job tasks or achieve job outcomes. And employers may ask about an applicant's qualifications and skills, such as the applicant's education, work history, and required certifications and licenses. The ADA does, however, provide an exception to the general rule prohibiting disability-related questions in the interview process. Under the ADA, an employer may invite applicants to voluntarily self-identify as individuals with disabilities for affirmative action purposes. So obviously, the best answer on this particular slide would be number 3. And with that, so you've done the basis, you're going through the interview process, and you're ready to make an offer. So what about job site accommodations? Well, let's look at the reality of accommodations for a minute. The ADA requires employers to provide a reasonable, and that word should be in red highlight, accommodations to the known physical or mental limitations of a qualified applicant or employee with a disability. Unless it can be shown, the accommodation would impose an undue hardship on the business. So that's the technical language about accommodations. So let's look at some of the realities of accommodations. The average cost from one study that I looked at for accommodations is actually $45. And if you think about even your day-to-day activities at work, that we all have accommodations of some sort or another, whether or not we identify as having a disability. I was at a presentation one time, and the speaker asked how many of us turn the lights on when we're at work, and everyone raised their hands. And they said, well, if you were an individual who was visually impaired or blind, you wouldn't need lights. So those lights can be an accommodation. How many of you have a chair at your desk? And again, all the hands in the room went up. And the speaker noted that, well, your chair is actually an accommodation that allows you to function and to do your job at your desk. So I think if we start to look at those tools or helps or things that we all have different types of at our desk, those can actually all be considered accommodations, and it becomes a little bit less threatening when we start to think of it that way. Employers have also noted that the benefit of hiring somebody with a disability actually saves them $2,000 to $5,000. So again, that becomes part of that business decision and why it's just good business to do so. And that comes through in the fact that they get a quality employee with the skills and talents that they're looking for and don't have that retraining cost that comes when you don't have good retention of employees. Some examples of accommodations, they can be large or small, but again, remember that average cost is about $45, and on average, they're generally less than a max of $500. But it can be as simple as adjusting or modifying tests and training materials in different formats, allowing the use of a job coach, modifying or acquiring equipment or devices, modifying policies or workplace rules, such as allowing an employee with diabetes to eat at her desk, or allowing a retail store cashier with a back impairment to use a stool, modifying work schedules, such as adjusting arrival or departure times, providing periodic breaks, or altering the times when certain job tasks are performed, providing qualified readers or interpreters, job restructuring, or flexible use of leave policies. So again, there are many different things that can be done to accommodate different disabilities that don't necessarily have a big impact to the company's bottom line. So in looking at that definition of reasonable, again, I've provided a series of questions on this slide and some considerations. So which is the best answer for a reasonable accommodational? Personal devices like eyeglasses, hearing aids or wheelchairs or other mobility devices, modifications or adjustments to the job, or special treatment in the form of equipment, office supplies, flexibility, etc. for employees with disabilities in the workplace. Again, number one is not the best answer. An employer is not required to provide an accommodation that is primarily for personal use. Equipment or devices that assist a person in daily activities on and off the job are considered personal items. In this case, number two is the best answer. Reasonable includes, but is not limited to, making facilities accessible, restructuring a job by reallocating or redistributing marginal job functions, modified work schedules, specialized office equipment, or technology. Again, one of the main takeaways from this webinar, I hope, will be the vast amount of resources that we have compiled to assist employers with working through the process of hiring an individual with a disability or working with them once they're on the job site. So on this slide, you'll see, and I know it's been provided in your materials, a wealth of information that you can use as you're going through the process, as you want to look more at accommodations. I want to point out on the tax credits, we also process the work opportunity tax credit. Hire an individual with a disability, that's a qualifying individual, and that can result in a tax break for the business. So again, a lot of different resources listed on this page. And if you need just a break sometime today, I would strongly encourage you to get online and Google, look for the word, the Superhumans, so W-E-R-E, the Superhumans trailer. It's definitely one of the most inspiring videos that you might be able to watch today. So that is a link I would encourage you to seek out. And then lastly, on our final slide, we have my contact information. We have the Department of Labor's main homepage where you can go to find all the resources that we have listed, and also that will provide the link to posting your job. So again, please remember to do that if you aren't currently, and we're glad to help you work through that process if needed. And then on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see Kimberly's contact information as well, her email, and their homepage, and additional information on the Ability for Hire website. So with that, Sean, I'm at the conclusion of my presentation, and we'll stand by.
Thank you, Secretary Hultman. We appreciate your presentation as well. Now we'll open it up for questions. And again, as a reminder, to ask a question, go to the panel on the side of your screen. You may need to click on that orange arrow to maximize the panel. Type in your message in the chat box and then click on send. Let me go through some of the questions out loud, Secretary Hultman and Kim, and ask them to provide some answers if possible. start here. The first one is, what questions can employers ask during an interview to assist the determination of hiring a disabled person? And again, I would remind those sending questions in, as well as Secretary Hultman and Kim, some of these questions may be a bit repetitive based off of what you've already provided, but we've received throughout the webinar. So I would ask you if you can once again go back and review what questions can an employer ask during an interview to assist the determination of hiring a disabled person.
Thank you, Sean. This is Marcia, and I would just reinforce that it's okay to stick with the questions that are specific to the responsibilities and the tasks associated with that position. So it is okay to ask them to either explain or demonstrate how they would complete a specific task, as long as it is tied to the position that you are interviewing for.
Next question is, I've been asked to hire a young man who has autism. If I hire him, would assistance be available to train him and to help with any ongoing needs we might have to make sure that he can do the job?
Kim,
Sure.
do you want to...
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, and this is Kim, and I can assist with answering that. What I would encourage you to do is reach out to either myself or the local vocational rehabilitation office that's located either in your community or nearest to your community, and just work with the primary contact as far as setting up the supports, and that is something that can be facilitated within our office, and that would just be a matter of you as an employer allowing kind of individualized support on the job when working with that employee, and that kind of going back to the presentation of the job coach or the employment specialist, just allowing them to come on site and working with the employee along with you as a business or employer to ensure that the individual is learning and acquiring the skills necessary to complete the essential job functions, and then also provide any type of support to you as an employer or other employees to better work with that individual. So yes, there are types of assistance available.
Along those same lines, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I apologize, Sean. From the labor perspective, the training dollars and things that I mentioned, it works the most efficiently if we have the individual enrolled prior to employment. So if there's somebody that you're interested in employing but haven't hired them yet, I would recommend that we meet with them first, and that might open up more avenues if we get to visit with them pre-employment.
And again, along the same line of questions, the next question asks, I have a list of questions I use for every job interview. Is there someone I can contact, have them review these questions to make sure I'm not asking improper questions?
Yeah, this is Kim. Go ahead, Marcia.
Go ahead.
I'll let you answer that first, Kim.
Okay. Absolutely. Either reach out to myself or Marcia Hultman or someone from the Department of Labor. And we do have resources available to where we can sit down with you and just take a look at the interview questions that you asked and so forth.
Secretary Hultman, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, Sean. So.
Okay, very good. I would also just offer that SDRA members, through our partnership with Jackson Lewis, have the ability to reach out to that labor law firm and ask for support as well. But you've got two great resources right here on the phone, and would encourage you to reach out to them as well. The next question is there a list available that would show questions I shouldn't ask job applicants?
And we've not developed a standardized list of questions, but Kim, would you have a resource?
I do, yep. Actually, I do have a one-page document that I can share with, and then that can be distributed to by the Retailer Association following the presentation. And it's just a general outline. Again, it doesn't have all of the questions per se, but it would be a general guideline. But if interested in receiving additional support beyond the questions that are identified on the one-page document, please either reach out to myself or Department of Labor, and we can provide individualized support to you.
And that's a great question, and Kim would appreciate your support for that as well. And obviously, we'll try to pass that information along through all of our platforms to get information out to our folks. The next question, and Secretary Hultman, this is for you. I have some jobs that require employees to be able to lift a certain amount of weight. Can I ask employees if they can lift that amount? And can I ask job applicants to show me they can do that?
Yes, you can, because that's very specific to their ability to be able to do that primary function of that job.
Next question. Kim mentioned help with job training, and Marcia mentioned job coaches. Can you give some specific information on the kind of training help the state provides? And is there a fee if I ask for help with training a new employee who has a disability?
And again, I'm going to approach it from the labor side, and then I think Kim's perspective will be a little bit different. First of all, there is no fee to the employer or to the individual for our services. And we, again, are a pre-employment program, so it works best if the individual starts with our office prior to being employed. And if we get them enrolled and started, then again, all sorts of things can be put into place, such as the offset of wages for a period of time, or the payment of all the wages for a period of time, or we can pay for tuition and fees associated with formalized training at a technical institute or in a short-term training program.
Yeah, and then just to add to what Marcia indicated, yes, there is not a cost at all for employers to utilize services available through whether it be our department or in conjunction with Department of Labor. And the reason why I say that is there are times where individuals with disabilities may be receiving services from both agencies, and as Marcia mentioned earlier in her presentation, the utilization of the integrated resource team, and what it is just the collaboration between the agencies and the individual. And as far as services, that is made available at no cost, again, to employers. And just please keep in mind that we are simply here as a resource and not agency that enforces regulations. Just in both Department of Labor and both divisions of Vocational Rehabilitation Services are available here as a resource. So please don't hesitate to reach out to either agency for assistance and support.
Great. Next question is, can Marcia provide more information on the Work Opportunity Tax Credit? Did she say local labor offices can assist with that?
Well, yes, I can offer very limited information on the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. I don't want to show my ignorance. So the answer I'm going to go to is yes, definitely. Our local offices are well versed in getting somebody certified for WOTC, and they would be more than happy to help with that process.
How do we access the resource link? I'm not sure if I understand the question. On that contact information and link page that is up there at this time, you should be able to just click on any of those links. If I understand the individual that asked the question, Marcia or Kim, I'm not sure who has the ability to click on one of those links, maybe as an example.
Oh, and I do the wrong one. That's not what we wanted to do. So this is the labor page where we have, this is the primary page where we've dedicated a spot to doing a combination of all the resources. So this is a good launching place to access many of those resources.
And then Kim, I think you might have had a link as well, if we can go back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Which one, Kim, the DHS page or the Ability for Hire page?
Why don't you go to the second one, Marcia, if you wouldn't mind, the Ability for Hire. And in conjunction with Department of Labor's Disability Resources page, which is excellent, this is the Ability for Hire is an initiative of the Department of Human Services, which officially launched last August with this website. And this is another excellent resource that can be utilized for both businesses and the general public, just to gain a better understanding of resources and services that are available to businesses and employees with disabilities. So there's actually a business section that's dedicated to providing kind of a breakdown of various resources and services that can be provided by vocational rehabilitation. So please feel free to check that out along with the Department of Labor's Disability Resource page.
And then one of the things I should mention as well, that through our involvement, we're working with Kim and the rest of our advisory group on the resource guide. Secretary Hultman has been involved in that project as well, and we hope to have that shared with the membership here in a short time as well. Secretary Hultman, the next question for you is, can you please repeat the website for the Superhuman video?
Yes. I would just go to YouTube and look for WERE, so it's W-E''RE, the Superhumans. And I can send a link to that, Sean, when we hang up too, if you would like to share it with those on the call.
That would be great. I should mention as well, on STRA's website, we have a section on the Getting Down to Business project. That's at www.stra.org/GDTB.ASP. And I'll repeat that again, www.stra.org/GDTB.ASP. And there you'll see all the involvement that we've had with the Getting Down to Business project, and we'll continue to upload more information there as well. I don't see any additional questions coming at this time. Secretary Hultman or Kim, do you have any closing comments or thoughts?
No, again, Sean, I just thank you for the opportunity. Always excited to be able to share the services that we have, and thank you for helping us get the word out on the assistance we can give to employers.
Kim, how about you?
In addition, yes, in addition to Marcia's comments, again, the appreciation of allowing me to have the opportunity to partner with Marcia in today's presentation.
Well, thank you. We appreciate both of your comments and your remarks for today's presentation. I think from the Retailers Association perspective, we've said from the beginning, if we can be a conduit to providing information to our members about this important initiative, not just this year, but going forward, I think we all are much further ahead. We want to thank everyone for participating in today's presentation. This webinar was recorded, and a link to the recording will be emailed to all of you later today. We will also be happy to furnish a transcript of the webinar if requested. Before we conclude today, I'd like to mention two upcoming educational opportunities. Our next webinar is scheduled for Tuesday, August 16th. Secretary Hultman's agency will be presenting information on the National Career Readiness Certificate and how employers can use that program to find employees with the types of essential math and information gathering skills that are vital in the workplace. And in September, our association will sponsor labor management conferences in Watertown, Sioux Falls, and Rapid City. At those workshops, labor law attorney Chris Hoyme of the Jackson Lewis Law Firm will focus on key employment law issues, including the new federal overtime regulations, workers' compensation issues, and discrimination issues. We will also have a business panel that will be led by Kim Hoberg. The panel will talk about the Project Skills program that links up employers with high school students who have disabilities at no cost to the employer. Check out our website for details at www.sdra.org. Again, Secretary Hultman and Kim, thank you so much for your presentation this morning. And thank you to everyone for participating in today's program. We hope you have a great day.